So please welcome Valerie Pachner.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, Valerie.
Thanks.
What a treat. One of the things I didn't mention when I introduced the film is that this is based on a true story. There were actually letters between Fanny and Franz all throughout when Franz was in jail. You had access to those letters, and reading the letters, how did that help your character, and how did that affect you?
Oh, they were actually the most important thing for the preparation. It was also the first thing Terry sent me a year before the shoot. And already just reading the letters, I had to cry because they're so heartfelt. And you can just draw, you feel how they live their life. You feel you feel about their love, you feel about their faith. There's so much in the letters already that actually they became the most important thing before the shoot and also during the shoot.
And you were cast before August on the part. 6 months, and why did it take such a long period to cast August after you were cast?
I don't know. It was really hard to find my husband. I don't know why. We just had, I don't know, I think like 15. I was reading with 15 men, and it was really just when August came in. He was like the last one in February, I think and it was sort of immediate. We sort of like everyone in the room except for him sort of knew it's gonna be him, because there was, all of a sudden you felt like, oh, we're sort of standing on the same ground, and we have this connection where you can imagine we can be this couple going through that. And Terry called me afterwards and was like, yeah, what did you think? And I was like, yeah, this and that. And he was like, no, but Valerie, can you imagine being married to him? It's like, yeah. Yeah, so.
I mean, I'm not an actor, but you spend so much time with August. There's got to have been this great degree of trust between the two of you. What was your relationship with August?
I think it really was this thing of like, we felt very early in the beginning that this is going to be something very special. And so it was almost this thing of like going through this together in a way, because we didn't really rehearse, so we didn't really know each other that well before we started shooting. And then I think it was just because we both felt that you have to give so much of yourself in there. You can't really hide behind a character. So I think it was that we both felt like we really have to like give ourselves into this, and we're sort of depending on each other. And we were running a farm basically, because most of the time we were actually doing real farm work, and so it almost felt like we were this farm couple, and we were like, in the morning we would be like, have you already milked the cow? And, so so it just became a very like sort of natural thing to be this couple.
Now,
yeah.
I read somewhere that August was a farmer growing up in France, but how much learning did you have to do? I mean, you have the scythe, all the different instruments, and now you talk about milking the animals. How much learning did you have to go?
There was a lot to learn all these things. I never used a scythe, so I had to learn that, and to milk a cow, and shear a sheep, and churn butter, and but I grew up in the countryside, not far from Radegund actually, and all my grandparents were farmers, so I sort of knew that environment, so I knew about it. So for me, it wasn't that hard to it was almost like I could see my character there. Like, it wasn't hard for me to picture myself in that environment. But then, of course, you really have to like get those actual things into your physics. But that was great because I felt it was really important for me to have that, because it really informs your character in a way that not only that, you know, the things look natural and not like weird when you do it, but also I felt that there was a certain grounding. It sort of grounded me, you know, to like really know how to do that, to be connected with the earth, sort of. And I felt that was very important for Franziska as well, for Fanny, to have this very, this connection with the earth and with nature.
Which actually leads to my next questions that, you're being...
so
the back row can actually see you. Nature and the natural environment plays such an important part in the film. You know, can you tell us about being in those locations and being surrounded by nature?
Yeah, that was actually really helpful for the whole shoot and for the whole, you know, story. Because we were basically, you know, you feel like you're standing in a postcard every day. So you do get the sense what those two characters have too. You get a certain sense of, you know, gratitude towards nature in a way, or you feel like you sort of understand, you know, that you're placed in this environment and you sort of feel, you know, looking at the mountains, you're like, okay, there's something bigger than me. and at the same time, you're so much, as a human being, you're so much part of this. So that was really, I felt it very helpful or great that we were actually like really shooting there. And then also the way we shot, or, you know, it was just very free. So you could really like, it was almost like really being out there in the nature, and there just happens to be a camera filming you. That made it just very natural.
Malick insisting on casting Germans and Austrians in all the parts. How was it that for you, that you were only surrounded with German actors, Austrian actors?
I mean, it was quite normal for me because it was my first film with an American director. So before, I've always worked with the German-speaking people. So that was just, it just felt pretty natural and normal to have them around. And it was actually kind of fun for us, I think, sometimes to, you know, to be doing it in English. It's just, for some of the actors, it was a little harder than others. So we sort of had like also our fun with playing with the language and all that. Yeah.
But he was looking for authenticity.
Yes, I think that's what what I understood is that he wanted people who are not so far from there, who can sort of carry or understand this, you know, of like, you know, and I feel like I had to think about my grandmother a lot, and I just felt like it's not, for me, it wasn't strange to be set in this situation that my character was set. And I think Terry was sort of looking for that it's just, you know, that people bring that with them naturally and have this sort of connection with that time and with that history.
It doesn't take a cinephile to watch this film and understand that Malick is avoiding conventions in the filmmaking, and there's a lot of amount of freedom to experiment visually. You know, what was it like for you acting in this environment?
It was the best. It was such a gift because you know, you don't feel like you have to follow the script strictly. I mean, there is the script, so you have something to hold on to, but at the same time, I really thought, like in the second week of shooting, I realized, wow, that's a place where there's so much space opening up where I actually, as actress, can contribute to what we do. Like, I can actually come up with ideas that I think would be good to do, or during improvisation, I can come up with something. I would send Terry ideas that I thought would be interesting to explore. So I felt that was the best for me, like really to not only, you know, act the lines or say the dialogue or whatever, but really like truly create also what is going to be seen on screen. And a lot of it, like, we had a script, but what you see is like parts of the script, but there are also like little moments that just happened, or through improvisation, and it just gives you a very, I don't know, just a very special feeling if you're able to do that.
He does very long takes with a camera, so no editing, and it seems very organic. And in the moment, what was it like to have the camera constantly flowing on those long takes?
It was both wonderful and challenging, because, in a way you can sort of relax into it, and you're also allowed to fail. So that's something you're like, oh, that's great. I can just try out, and we do it again, or we do it the next day, and you just jump around. But on the other hand, there's this moment where you're like, the camera's rolling, and you're like doing something, and at some point you sort of run out of ideas, and you're like, okay, let's just keep going, and that can be tiring. But at some point, you just, you reach a point where you just don't try anymore, and that's what Terry loves most, when life is happening. And that was very interesting for me too, to like sort of experience that relief of like trying, but just get to the point where you're like, okay, I just be here, and there's the camera, and we're there. That was really, yeah.
I know that watching a film that Malick, and you call him Terry, lucky you, Malick and Widner, your cinematography, insists on natural light during the film. It's all natural, available lighting. Was that something that was challenging during the filmmaking, that it had to be natural lighting?
I felt that was great, because there are no breaks for lighting, so you can sort of you can stay in the flow, and you shoot all day. I love that, and also that you didn't have to take care, of it that much. The only thing that we as actors, we were responsible in a way for the lighting. So when we were shooting inside, you had to be aware of the light. Like Terry would always say, play the light. You had to sort of, while you're acting, so that was maybe the hard thing about it, because while you're acting, you actually also have to be like, oh, where's the light, where's the light coming from? He would always say, sitting by the window, and you just have to sort of know, how does that work? And that was like one of the rules. There were just a few little rules that Terry had, and that was one of them that we were, but you just get sort of used to it, and because you also know if the light is not right, the natural, even though it's just the natural light, it's not going to get in, because that's very important for him. So we were all very eager to, to learn.
Were there any moments that the weather affected, because of the natural lighting, that the weather affected the filming?
Yes and no. Yes, because of course, sometimes it would be raining when it shouldn't, or, but no, because Terry always, it was never a problem. It was always fine, it was never, it should be different. It was always like, oh, that's that's great, it's raining, or it's, it was never a problem when the weather was different than we expected it to be, because it was also something that happened, and it was sort of part of the process. Yeah. Now,
did you film at the Jagger Studdard house?
Yeah, we had 2 days there. So we were shooting most of it in the north of Italy, and then we had 2 days at the original house where they lived. The bedroom scenes are there, and there are a few scenes, and that was also where we met the daughters they're still living in that area.
Maria, Rosalia, and Aloisa.
Yeah, Louise. Yeah, they're in their 80s now, and I knew they might be coming to visit the set, but it wasn't sure, and because we didn't want to be intruding, and remember we were shooting that scene in the bedroom, a very long take, and at that moment I saw, like, in the corner of my eye, oh my God, there is an old lady standing next to the camera, and it was Maria, the middle one, and yeah, that was just very very special and very overwhelming to like meet them in real life, and it just sort of makes you. That was really that made me think and realize even more how important it is to tell the story, and yeah.
Yeah, this is actually Terrence Malick's first film based on actually a biography, and that the descendants are still alive. Have they seen the film, the
Yes.
daughters?
Yeah. We showed it to them shortly before Cannes at the house of Maria, so that they still live there in Radegund. And I came with them because it wasn't translated in English yet. So I simultaneously translated it to them. Yeah. That was really the wildest.
So they were watching the film, and you were.
I was sitting with them on a couch in their little living room, and they were sitting next to me, and I was translating, sentences like, "Rosie is always asking for you," while the real grown-up 80-year-old Rosie is sitting next to me. That was, yeah. Very intense, but very special too. Like, it was very moving and very sad. They, they were crying, of course, but they also loved it. They loved the film, so that was.
I was asking you earlier that we've never heard of the story and how important it is for us to know of the story, but you told me that you were aware of Franz and Fanny growing up.
Yeah, they are known in Austria, but it's not like, I feel like if you see it now, if you see that story now, you feel like they should be, very well known or treated like national heroes, but that's not really the case. Like, about them, but it's not like everyone is talking about them all the time or something. It's more like, because also it wasn't until the 80s that his reputation was restituted. So before that, he was treated as a crazy one. People were like, knew about it, and they were like, oh, he's crazy, or he was suicidal, and it was really later on, like in the 80s, that people thought about him differently. Also, the church thought about him differently, and so that's why I think like people still have like a weird sort of mixed feelings about him. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you have to work. We've always heard stories that not to work with animals and not to work with young children, and you get to work with lots of animals and young children in this movie. Was that a challenge?
I loved it because it just made you, it challenged you in the way that you have to be as natural and authentic as possible all the time, like, So, and I think that was great. It actually sort of helped me, or it just felt like, it's just part of this world. So I loved getting to know the cows, and it was really really enriching to work.
How long was the whole period? Because you seem to go through several seasons.
No, we were shooting for 8 weeks in July and August of 2016. And then we had 2 days in the winter, but that was just like really just for a few images in the snow. So most of it was shot in 8 weeks in summer.
One of the themes in the movie that really struck me is that, do we have the right to hurt people you love in the service of a greater good? Inhabiting Fanny, is that something that you question, her role and her involvement in France's choice?
Yeah, of course. I feel like going through the shoot, it was really going through all those different emotions and stages that you go through. It's not even, you can't even really wrap your head around this, right? But like, I really got a sense of like, you have all those, you have the moments of sadness, you have the moments of anger, you have the moments of frustration, of the moments of you don't understand, the moments of you want this to be different. But then, which was so wonderful and like so like strengthening was, the moment when you realize, what he's doing is right, because Fanny agreed, she felt the same in her heart, that it is right to oppose Hitler. And then to like get to this point where you put morale above your survival instincts, it's just very empowering in a way. It just gives you, I don't know, you feel like, you know, so strong, and it just gives you a certain, you sort of elevate it in a way. And that's when I sort of understood her, and also understood her greatness of, you know, doing that, supporting him, because she felt the same. And also because of her love for him, you know, to like witness someone who loves another person so much that it's, you know, it goes beyond their own needs. That also felt very powerful, yeah.
There was some heartbreaking moments for your character that, you know, you're ostracized by so many in the town. And was that difficult from an actor to have to be ostracized by all the other different people?
Yeah, of course, it is it's hard because you have this feeling of, you know, you feel very left alone. But again, I had this feeling that Fanny had, you know, she never held a grudge against her village. And that was, again, something that I felt was so weirdly powerful, you know, that she did not. Also, like the real Franziska, I watched, for preparation, I watched a little documentary that's called The Widow of the Hero. And you see her, she's like 96, being interviewed. And she's this very fragile old lady. She got 100 years old. And she's that, you know, she's fragile and old, but she is not broken. She beams, and she's so alive. And then I realized, wow, she went through all this, you know, with even years of, like, decades of ostracism in her, ostracism, you say that?
Ostracism, yeah.
In her village. And of, like, you know, taking all this pain, but she did not break. And that was for me very important in preparation for the character, that I felt like even though she has to go through so much pain and injustice, there's something that she, you know, she holds on to a goodness, and I almost felt like she sort of understands her neighbors. She understands their fear. And so she's almost like, you know, yeah, stronger than that. And that was also very strengthening in a way.
You know, you mentioned about being in the Jagger Studdard house. You know, there's the clock where she looks at the time in which France, is that the real clock that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That is the little, yeah, that is the real clock. Yeah.
That's amazing. And then last question is about, you know, Terrence Malick is one of the most iconic directors in cinema. Overall, how would you look back at this experience?
It was one of the best experiences that I had professionally, and it certainly, you know, also personally was very important for me and sort of changed me. And I'm just so, I'm endlessly happy that Terrence Malick decided to do a film with German-speaking actors in that time that I was that, you know, it's just, yeah.
And what do you think if you could summarize, what is it that makes him so special?
I think because he's very radical, you know, he doesn't compromise, he really follows his vision. I think that's very powerful and special, and it just gives you also this feeling of, like, when you feel something is right and just follow that, and I think that's very powerful, yeah, about him.
Great honor to have you here, Valerie.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.